So this is almost the first and definitely the last uni vlog of the calendar year. Maybe, not so much even the first semester. I might do one once I've had my exam or something. But there is one teaching week left, and I was like, well, I did say I'd do them, less frequently than weekly, yes, but I did say I'd try and do a few more, but there's been life stuff that's gone in the way, and I'm glad I didn't put pressure on myself, let's put it that way, to do too much. I don't want to go into it here. I don't think it's relevant, but it is a factor that I've had to think about. I mean, of course, I'm doing psychology with counselling, so yes, there's research methods which I've been fine with. There's what they call adventures in psychology, which is more psychology even, which is more looking at the concepts and other theories. We've been looking at particularly social and developmental stuff, and that's interesting. And there's a lot of great concepts there. The assignment for that is an essay of your choosing, as long as it brings in social and or developmental. You can focus on one, but you'd obviously have to do more work for that side. But it's nice to have that choice. I was like, oh god, so much choice, and then it came to me. I knew exactly what I wanted to write about, and both times I've raised it, it's been like, yes, that's a really good concept, go with it. So that's been fun, and I've actually got a few papers that have interesting titles to look over still. But I really want to focus on the counselling side, because that's the core of why I'm doing this. Obviously, with last year, there wasn't a counselling specific bit because it was the foundation year for psychology as a whole. There wasn't a tailored bit for counselling. So I've had to, just talk in general. This year, or for now at least, I do want to focus on the counselling side. There won't be so much of a counselling focus next semester. There will be a thing called Pathways, which is more like career progression, what job opportunities are out there, how would you achieve them, that kind of thing. But it's not going to be skills practice or anything like that. It's not going to be about being a counsellor in the same way. This first semester has been very good as a taster and learning what skills a counsellor needs, what tools in your arsenal you should employ. And like I say, I think that is the bulk of what I should talk about in this, because that is the core, the crucial bit. Whenever I've had to take time off with this life situation, I've prioritised seminars for one, because lectures are, here's material being given to you. This is taught material. This is information displayed and given. Seminars are apply that. Explore the concepts in small groups, and maybe touch on other things that weren't really pertinent for the lecture, but could be interesting to look at further because they're related. And so I've been focusing on seminars and not the lectures so much, but the counselling stuff I've made sure to be at the lecture for as well. Not just because there's a hard 75% attendance requirement. I've not done it for that reason at all, but it's because that's the focus. That's the variant of psychology that I've gone for. So I have definitely made sure to prioritise what I should, and the lectures are recorded at staffs, and I think a lot of probably universities up and down the country, if not the world, did that following pandemic situation, because we still need people to be taught on the courses. They've signed up for it, so we still need to do it somehow. So being able to record the lecture does make it a lot easier. And so that's what I've been catching up with, like with that and the slides. Like with last year, I know I moaned about people coming in and just being like, well, I wasn't in the last thing, and I'm just going to hold up a class while I ask for clarification, because apparently I'm not going to do my job as a student and do, I'd argue, about 90% of the work as independent study. It should be about that. To me, that works about right. 10% contact hours, 90% independent study. But a lot of people think it's not that way around, and there has been pushback this year, and I'm very happy with that. I've learned from last year and not been... I started a little bit doing it, and I caught myself sort of jumping in and wanting to give the answers so that we could flow. But there were situations where people were saying, oh, I wasn't in the last one. Like, neither was I, but I caught up. I've bitten back. I've been better at self-care. But through the counselling side, I've learned that, yes, I have a lot more resilience than I thought I did. We did a free writing exercise to help sort of prep for the assignment for that, which is a personal development essay. And I caught myself writing stuff about this resilience, and I didn't know that's where I was going. That's the brilliance of free writing. You just let your brain take you on a journey. Just keep writing. It doesn't matter what it is. Just keep going. And I found this, and we're meant to pull out 2 themes that we've gotten from a journal that we should have been doing alongside the counselling module. We can bring in other elements, but it is more about the counselling side. So I've been doing that, of course. I've been keeping on top of it, and I could find one theme very easily, but I was struggling for the second one. But this gave me that second one, that resilience, which is a crucial part of being a counsellor. It's being aware of what you need to get through, and being able to push yourself to the right degree. Not pushing yourself to a point that you're actually burning out, you're suffering for it, but pushing yourself to achieve the best you can. And I loved finding that in that writing. There are people that maybe I wouldn't have spent time with, in Civvy Street, I guess, as the military would call it. But same as last year, there's been people I've known, of course, from last year. But there are people last year who, again, I wouldn't have spoken to otherwise, but I found that connection. And I found that again this year. There's some people who I really got on well with. I really enjoy talking to. I want to succeed. And I'm very mindful of the fact that there are some people who have come from up and down the country, some even internationally, who have left people behind, left the life that they've lived so far behind to start this chapter. And I've always had that thing of, yes, I should do what I need to succeed and, do the best I can. But if I can bring some people up with me, that'll make me very happy. And that's what I feel I'm doing. Like some of these people, I'm like, okay, you and I, we will come up together. And I don't mean that just literally just you and I one-to-one. There are a few people I'm just like, if I can help you, as long as I've got the time and the energy myself, I will help you get through. There are some people who've had hardships throughout the course. There are some people who've had hardships years ago that, because of how introspective and reflective counselling training is, are perhaps seeing some of these old wounds opening again that they didn't realise. I had a moment in a session where we did looking at sort of a psychodynamic approach of conditions of worth, or what you feel you need to be valued. So the question was, finish this sentence. To be of worth, I must. And, I was picked on because I'm good at this. I've done a lot of therapy. But I was just like, my instinctual response, behave. And I was like, what does that mean? So I broke that down in my head. And I thought I'd processed a lot of that issue around that kind of concept. But there was apparently still something lingering there. For me to come out with that so readily, it's like there was something there. And it let me look back on it. I've seen the development of my skills too. My first session, which was observed by the course lead and the module lead, sat there in the room. Like, how high pressure can you get? Well, there is one step, but I'll get onto that. But I felt that pressure. And there's a concept that we've talked about a lot of putting on the therapist coat versus becoming the therapist or the counsellor. I'll use therapist and counsellor interchangeably probably throughout this, if not already done tons before. But in that first session, I was putting on the coat. So as soon as real emotion started happening, I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this. That's not part of the attire, as it were. And I had to stop. I had to put my hand up and say, I'm uncomfortable. What we learned later is, it was transference. I was feeling that emotion from my client in that position and internalizing it, but I wasn't counter-transferring and throwing it back as a case of, I'm feeling perhaps as an element of anxiety or something like that. I was interpreting it as my own uncomfortable situation. Then the life thing happened, so I missed a session, and the next session I did, I was like, I'm not going to sit as a client because there's a lot of heavy stuff. But I sat as a counsellor, and I was improved. But I caught myself again doing rescuer kind of behaviour. I was trying to save my client from an uncomfortable feeling. And then there are things called goldfish bowls. And they're fun. Because what it will be is one person sits as client, one person sits as counsellor. The rest of the seminar group sit around and observe. Including, again, course lead, etc. So that's quite high pressure. The first time it was offered, there were 3 of us who were asked, if any of you lot, because I think you could do it, want to do it, want to do a goldfish bowl. And someone else chimed in first. And I was like, yep, let them go, fine. They did really well. So I think it was a couple of weeks after it was offered up again. And, I joked about it, saying, like, maybe ask me at the break. And I meant, like, after I'd topped up my medication, and felt more calm, shall we say. But I was asked before the break, and I was like, yeah. And I immediately went, what have I done? But I got through it. As part of those Goldfish Bowl situations, it's invited that if you're feeling stuck at any point, just raise your hand, and, any of us around the room will offer what we might say in that situation. The Goldfish Bowls aren't a critique in a negative way. It is a critique, yes. We are looking and analysing this person in their role and giving feedback, positive and, sort of constructive criticism. But neither the person who did it first, nor I, nor someone who did it very recently. There's 3 of us so far who've done it in my group. But none of us put our hand up and said, help. We all, because I've spoken to them, we all kind of just got into the moment. We were all aware that there were people around us, but we tuned it out for most of it. And I respect everyone who actually sat as a client in those. There are 3 people, have said, like, yeah, we're part of the club because we've done the counsellor role in these Goldfish Bowls. And it's obviously us who are being critiqued. But in counselling training, you don't bring stories. You don't, like, read in the paper like a woman is, super depressed because her kid's been taken away. Like, right, I'll pretend to be her. You bring reality, which is why I opted out of being a client for so many weeks. You have to bring something true. And so, whilst it's hard for the counsellor to sat there and being observed and critiqued, the client is bringing raw truths potentially. And if they've got a good person sitting as counsellor, and as egotistic as this will sound, all 3 of the clients that have been in the Goldfish Bowl have had good counsellors. I know I'm one of those, but I think we all did really well. We delved into the things that we needed to. We latched on to concepts. And I think the bravery of those people cannot be overstated. They are very, very brave. I think when it comes to level 5, or year 2, whatever way you look at it, I think it'd be good for me to sit as a client in a Goldfish Bowl to understand what it's like in that situation. How will that affect how I am in that space? But I mean, this is longer than I intended this video because there's a lot here. It's the benefit of doing the short ones every week. I don't have a lot to catch up on. But before I make this go on far, far, far longer than it probably should do, if you can't tell, as much as, I'm kind of stressed because assignments are looming and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of work I've still got to do. But as much as that stress exists, as much as life tried to throw me a curveball and really test me, I'm enjoying it. And I just keep wanting to go and go and go. People keep saying, like, you're going to do PhD. I'm like, let me get undergrad done first. Then we'll cross that bridge. But if I'm being entirely honest with myself, maybe. We'll see. But that's all I want to say. Like I say, this catch-up, I'll try and do them more frequently moving forward, but I'm not going to commit to anything just yet. We'll see how I go. But thank you very much, and to all these people who like these catch-ups, I appreciate the support. It's hard doing uni and still doing this and other obligations in life. It's a balancing act and it's tiring. So I do respect all of the support I get, whatever form that takes. So thank you all very much for watching. And until next time, take care.